What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast, the first of 2020. We've got NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2 happening Saturday. No, actually not Saturday anymore. It's going to be on Sundays. Sunday, January 12th at the Empress Ballroom in Blackpool, because that's obviously the point of why they're calling it TakeOver Blackpool. We are going to run down the card the way that we normally do here. We're going to talk about our predictions for all 5 of the matches, anything else that we think might go down, our overall perspective of NXT UK at the moment, and blah, blah, blah. I am your host as always, Tony Mango, and joining me as always are Callum Wiggins.
Jiminy, Governor.
Chaparro. And Robert DeFelice.
Yes, I am American.
When I want to necessarily say
that didn't stop it.
Well, I'm a dick, but not like that.
And I'm a fan, which makes Cal. No, I'm just kidding. Oh god, we could go in so many different directions with this, but I think that instead of us being all like, Mary Poppins-ish and stuff, I think we're gonna just kind of start things off with Tyler Bate versus Jordan Devlin. And this is the type of thing that I really feel bad crapping on, but I just do not care about this feud. The feud has revolved around a kid coming into the fold, and Jordan Devlin, for some reason, being upset about that, and Tyler Bate being kind of like a kid's friend and like mentor, sort of, and then Jordan Devlin having an issue with Tyler Bate because of the whole thing. Now, I will give credit where it's due. Jordan Devlin has had a little bit more personality when he's been doing these little backstage vignettes of like a highlight reel where predominantly revolves around Jordan Devlin or negative things for Tyler Bate. That's kind of fun. But I look at this and I'm like, well, that's on the card. I don't know. I feel like this is the second most underwhelming thing. There's another match that I think is even more like, oh god, why is this bothered to be on here? And it's like, well, why didn't we get that Alexander Wolf versus Ilya Dragunov no disqualification match on here instead? That would have been, more entertaining in my mind. So I'm not into this.
Are you sure it's not?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been booked. They already did it.
Yeah, it already happened a couple of weeks ago. Well, last week.
Yeah. So unless they just did a repeat and they added a 6th match to the card.
I doubt they'd do that.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case. So I know that Bate is good, and I know that Devlin is going to end up having a great match with Tyler Bate because they're talented. So I'm sure the match itself is going to be fun to watch. But it's not something I can sink my teeth into. So I'm going to go Tyler Bate wins because I kind of feel like that needs to happen to justify the fact that this whole feud built to this point. But to me, I'm like, well, why couldn't Noam Dar have done something instead or something? You know what I mean? How you guys feeling about this?
I kind of get the sense that based on the weakness of the feud that's used to build up towards it, it's just this case of, okay, these are 2 of the most talented wrestlers that we have on the roster. We need to put them on this card somewhere, so we might as well put them against each other. So that it's basically one of these situations where they're hoping the quality of the match itself makes up for the fact that the feud is a bit weak. So, and they're more than capable of delivering on that. So I imagine the match itself will actually be a lot of fun. These guys really work hard. Bate has had a ton of great matches on NXT and NXT UK. Jordan Devlin's had a good few showings as well. I personally would go with Devlin over this. Like, I think Devlin is going to be the one to win just because he's the only one that hasn't had... He's the only one who's been on the cusp of an NXT UK run as like the champion or close enough for a while now. And Tyler Bate's already had his shot at Walter and he failed that. So I almost feel like this match has a bit of like a pseudo number 1 contendership feel to it. And I feel you might move from this into Devlin challenging Walter down the road.
I'm also going to go with Devlin because I think Bate being the established competitor, it's kind of his time to, go back around and put people over before I assume he will eventually transition into NXT main and just stay in Florida. But yeah, I think it'll be a good match, and the crowd will be on their feet and chanting Tyler Bate.
This to me feels like an opener match. They could structure the card a little bit differently. Like, it wouldn't shock me if maybe they did the tag team match first, and then they sort of did like this match, and then as like a filler, sort of, and then like the women's match, and then the Dennis and Seven match is filler. Like, if they did it kind of like they split the difference that way, but I could see them maybe going in the direction of Bate and Devlin being first, and just sort of like go out there, have a good match. Everybody else is going to, other than the other match that Dennis and Seven won, everyone else has a chance to one-up you at that point. And if you go out and you do a really good job as a standard match, that maybe you're not going to feel underwhelming after like the tag team match or something. So if it doesn't happen that way, then I lean a little bit more towards Devlin getting a chance to win. But I think if it is the opener, it goes to Bate just to kind of put a smile on people's faces. But maybe you disagree. And if you do, drop a comment below. You should be chiming in your opinions about all these matches and telling us your thoughts on what you think is going to happen. So if you are on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Anchor, Podbean, whatever the different audio-only platforms are, leave a rating, hop over to YouTube. That's where you can drop a comment. While you're there, you should like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already, and ring that little bell for notifications. And if you do not follow us on YouTube and you want to leave a comment elsewhere, go on the page on smarkatmoment.com. The predictions page on there has a comment section. So, you got people rooting for Piper Niven, somebody rooting for Toni Storm. Drop a comment and tell us your thoughts there. But the other match that I had mentioned that I feel is very underwhelming is Eddie Dennis versus Trent Seven. Now, as much as the Devlin and Bate match and the feud itself just doesn't have much going for it, Dennis and Seven has even less. This was started by Eddie Dennis holding on to Trent Seven's hand a little longer. Like, Seven is celebrating with the crowd and he's shaking hands and high-fiving, and he gets to Eddie Dennis and then he's like, oh wow, that's Eddie Dennis, and he's holding my hand and he won't let go. And there's your start of a feud. That's fucking great. And it's not like they followed it up with all that much that was great either, because they followed it up with Trent Seven's going to fight a jobber and Eddie Dennis beats up the jobber, so the match doesn't happen. And then Trent Seven cuts a promo of like, hey, kind of a dick move to beat up the jobber. And Eddie Dennis is like, let's have a match at TakeOver. All right. Somebody give this guy, this writer, the best storyline of the year.
And to be fair, Eddie Dennis did hit Trent Seven in the face with a microphone. So that was something.
Well, thank you, because that one statement by Callum made this sound just a whole hell of a lot more compelling than what anything Toni said.
Is that really that much of a game changer, though? Is it like, he hit him in the head, now I'm like...
Yeah, it was in the eye, Toni.
Compared to, he held my hand for a little too long, yes.
You gotta build to something,
The eye is no joke. Yeah, attacking the eye is like, that's a big no-no. That's like, definitely you need to have a big blow-off match at a pay-per-view for it.
Yeah, I mean, an eye for an eye makes everyone blind, Can't have that.
This is one of those Hammurabi's Code matches. They just start poking each other's eyes. Ric Flair would love it.
So I'm going to say Dennis wins because same story as before. Got to put new people over.
How long has he been out? It's been like a year and a half or something. He's been gone for a while.
Sure. I mean, he only recently came back from injury because at that Progress show that I saw a couple of months back, that's when he made his big return, winning the championship. So he's currently the Progress champion. So he's a pretty big deal on the UK independent scene, as well as obviously now transitioning over to being a reasonably big figure in NXT UK. So I wouldn't be surprised if he also got the victory here. I'm probably more confident with him getting the victory over Trent Seven than I am Jordan Devlin over Tyler Bate.
Poor Devlin.
Oh yeah, well, I think that Trent Seven's role, even more so ahead of Bate in terms of is putting people over and having these kind of classic old school matches with people, because Trent Seven he's obviously not the most agile wrestler in the world, but he's has a very good old school methodology, and he's very, very experienced, and he's very good at getting the most of what he can do. And almost like having matches with him is almost more beneficial to someone coming up like Eddie Dennis than having matches with people of a similar age or who are more athletic, because you have to essentially try and get the best out of, like, stretch every sinew to get the best out of it, as opposed to doing all the flips and high flying and other more acrobatic stuff, which is guaranteed to get more of a reaction. You have to be a bit more, I guess, more theatrical almost in this match. Tell a bit more of a story.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to this. I think this is just going to be either Dennis loses, and I think that the wrong decision was made, or Dennis wins, and I'm like, all right, well, it's a match to get him back on track, and it really doesn't matter all that much because it's Trent Seven. Like, Trent Seven's really not going to go anywhere, I don't think. If he's there just to be a jobber, whenever he's in a match, I'm not invested. It's kind of like when Heath Slater is going to go up against Andrade or something, where I'm like, all right, yeah, I wonder who's going to win this one, you know? And Eddie Dennis, I'm kind of wondering where his ceiling is, too, because I can't see Eddie Dennis versus Walter for the championship. Not only are they two heels, but I don't know, I just can't imagine that that's necessarily the case either. So it's almost sort of like, all right, well, Dennis, if he wins and he gets back on track here, even though the win doesn't mean much, he's heading towards mid-card type of status. They don't have a mid-card title. So I do think Dennis is going to win, but this is just filler to me. And not even all that great filler.
I mean, I think this will be the lowest match in terms of the quality, but I know both guys can go, so it's not really saying much. It's just, yeah, there's nothing going for it here.
Yeah, it probably will be the lowest, in terms of, like, if you're going to go by the star rating stuff, this will be the lowest rated one on the show. But in that sense, at least it probably can't disappoint me. I feel like I'm looking forward to it just by the sense of I just want to see what these two can put together, and I think it'll be kind of more different than any other match on the card in that regard, just being more kind of basic and more fundamental focused.
Maybe they'll hold hands for a long time. Now, I do think, on the flip side, that we're going to get a really fun match out of the NXT UK Tag Team Championship Fatal 4-Way Ladder match. It's going to include Gallus, who are the champions at the moment, Wolfgang and Mark Coffey, versus Grizzled Young Veterans, versus Imperium's Marcel Bartel and Fabian Eichner, who I still can't figure out if it's Fabian Eichner or Fabian Eichner, because he's pronounced it differently twice. I made a note of that the other day. He said his name different, so if he doesn't even know, then how the fuck am I supposed to know?
It's Cesar Benoni.
It might be that's the case. And also South Wales Subculture, who they haven't been referred to as South Wales Subculture on TV, so if you don't know, that is Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews. So everybody here has been a tag team champion, other than Imperium. And maybe that necessarily means that Imperium could win, because we do have Worlds Collide NXT versus NXT UK coming up. And on that card, the only thing that they have officially announced so far is the Undisputed Era versus Imperium. With that card, they haven't said yet if they are trying to do any kind of specific title versus title type scenarios, but a bunch of the champions are already lumped into that match. So, assuming that we don't get, like, the Undisputed Era doesn't lose the tag team titles beforehand or something, then you've got Adam Cole and Walter against each other in that match. You've got no mid-card champion on the NXT UK side of things to pair up with Roderick Strong, and then you got the tag team champions of NXT against maybe the tag team champions if they win here. That would make a little bit of sense, but I don't think that WWE would necessarily take the titles off of Gallus specifically for that reason. I think that it's more so stable versus stable is the attraction rather than, well, we got to make sure that the tag team champions are parallels. You guys agree?
Yeah, they'd be incredibly short-sighted if they I mean, obviously if they wanted to run with Imperium with the titles for a while, that's fair enough. But if they just wanted to do it just to make sure that Worlds Collide had two more champions in it than it currently already has, then that's a bit ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like it's a given that Imperium wins here only because we do have Worlds Collide coming up, and Imperium is the big stable, so maybe they should.
It's just funny because it's just like you've just taken exactly what me and Tony said and just flipped it completely on its head. Oh yeah, it'd be absolutely ridiculous if they just did Worlds Collide. Yeah, but Worlds Collide is coming up, so maybe they decide to change the title.
But that is entirely what they're doing. And beyond Worlds Collide, Imperium is the main angle in NXT UK. They should hold all the belts, not as long as Undisputed Era, arguably, but I think just for Worlds Collide and the inevitable faction stuff after, they're going to win it here.
Well, let's see what the tag team classic, the Dusty Rhodes tag team classic, I should say. They're on opposite ends, if I remember correctly. Let me double check about that. So Imperium, so Imperium has the Forgotten Sons this week, and I'm assuming next week we get Matt Riddle and Pete Dunne against Andrews and Webster. We also have Grizzled Young Veterans against Kushida and TBA, and then Gallus and Undisputed Era. So if Gallus and Undisputed Era leads to Undisputed Era winning, and then they beat Kushida and Blank or Grizzled Young Veterans, then we could get, if Imperium wins that other side, we could get Imperium versus Undisputed Era again in that. And maybe that's some of what they have in mind, because if they did do that, and it happened after this, then we would have tag team champion versus tag team champions. But then again, you're doing it just for the sake of doing it on the TV show, and it's not necessarily something that has to happen. Like it's not written in stone, kind of the way that we've done in the past, where like, you know, if you're doing Team Raw versus Team SmackDown, you need 5 people from Team Raw and 5 people from Team SmackDown in Survivor Series. So they could get away with doing it or not doing it. I guess it more so depends on the idea of, do they want to put all the belts on Imperium?
Well, I kind of anticipated that the finals of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic would take place at the next TakeOver show.
In Tampa.
Yeah.
Portland?
The one that's replaced that
Portland.
Fastlane show. Yeah, so I imagine that'd be a final. And then the winners of the Dusty Rhodes Classic would challenge for the NXT Tag Team Championships in Tampa.
Well, the issue with that is Undisputed Era's in there.
Yeah, well, that's why I assume they'd be taken out probably in the semi-finals.
They could either lose to Gallus, or they could lose to Grizzled Young Veterans or Kushida, and then at that point, then they're in the finals.
Yeah, so I thought that maybe it would be, well, moving away a bit from the NXT UK thing, but I just don't feel like we're going to get a match between those two teams, like the NXT UK Tag Team Champions and the NXT Champions as the final for the Dusty Rhodes Classic, just because that's typically not the way they do things in terms of who wins, they get an opportunity. And it seems a bit odd if the NXT UK Tag Team Champions decide they're just going to challenge for the NXT Tag Team Championships. What if Undisputed Era win? Do they challenge for the NXT UK Tag Team Championships instead? It just feels a bit odd. So
I mean, technically speaking, they could just make the winners just get the trophy and that's it. It'd be kind of underwhelming, but yeah,
that's what they did the first time. But ever since then, it has been either involved or at least like has had some association with the Tag Team Championships. But in terms of this, so that doesn't play too much into my mind in terms of deciding who would win this match for the NXT UK Tag Team Championships. But that doesn't mean Imperium can't win just because it would be cool to have the NXT Tag Team Champions in the same faction as the NXT Champion. I just feel, is that just a bit like really samey? It's like that's what they're doing on the NXT main show, so they have to do the exact same thing on the NXT UK show. Wouldn't it be better to do something a little bit different?
Mm-hmm. Plus, I mean, it's a ladder match. Anybody can win this, and it doesn't make anybody necessarily look weak.
No.
You know, even if it wasn't a ladder match, I mean, anybody could pin Grizzled Young Veterans or Andrews or Webster, and they could avoid making Gallus or Imperium lose. You know, that's not necessarily going to kill those other careers or anything. You know, James Drake takes a pin. It's not like, oh my God, he's done for, you know. But a ladder match, I mean, Imperium can be busy on the outside and Gallus retains, or maybe they do switch it. To me, and I think that maybe we can all agree here, it's not going to Webster's and Andrews, and it's not going to Grizzled Young Veterans, right?
I think it's going to Imperium, but I wouldn't count any team out.
Yeah, I feel like it's still a bit up in the air for me to like say definitively one team can't win this match. Because Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan are obviously going to be the big crowd favourites, and they'll be the ones doing most of the high flying in this match. Eichner and Bartel have the Imperium rub to them, and they're the only ones that haven't been NXT UK Tag Champions, so they might just be given it just by that. Grizzled Young Veterans are the first champions, but it's been a while since they've had them, and they need something to do on NXT UK, because otherwise they might just fall into the background too much. And Gallus are the current champions, and there doesn't seem to be a huge drive to take the belts off them just yet. So any team could use being the champions.
Yes.
But so that's the reason why it's so difficult to choose. But if I was to gun to my head, I would go Gallus retaining.
I'm going Imperium.
I'm going Gallus retaining, and I'm saying that this is going to end up being my favorite match of the night. I think that they're going to have a lot of fun. And
it'll be a lot of fun.
The flippy stuff's going to be there. The grounded stuff's going to be there. It's more so just when you have a couple people in this kind of a scenario, they can do their highlights, and then it doesn't have to fall short and be boring at any point. Whereas some of the other things, sometimes it's, a one-on-one match. They have their moments where they're just sort of losing the crowd and stuff.
I do have to say that WWE is going a little overkill with ladder matches recently, though.
They seem to get into these little fits where they're just sort of
because obviously we just had TLC, so we had multiple ladder matches in that show. We've also had there was the one on the NXT show. I know that was a few months back, but they also had two ladder matches. Yeah, on NXT TV recently. So it's hard to do because then you start going into the law of diminishing returns, and you keep having to go the extra mile to try and impress people with it.
Yeah, but these are British ladders. They're completely different.
What would be the difference?
Well, they're like the ones in Mary Poppins where they're made of wood, and you have to prop them up against the building rather than being in the center of the ring. It's actually up on the stage where you just you press it up against the entrance wall and you climb up that side to it.
That's right.
And then you have to perform a musical number before you actually get the belt.
If you want Callum to perform a musical number before he gets a belt, then donate to the Patreon.
We don't do the outros anymore, not even for the Patreon.
That depends on how much the Patreon gets. The Patreon, I'll quickly plug that while I just made that joke. It's Patreon. So if you don't know what a Patreon is, I don't know what to tell you, but check it out.
Then you're not on the internet.
Yeah, it's a means to help us out, keep the lights on a little bit, help motivate us to do some other stuff. And if you got $1, then if you toss that our way, it's greatly appreciated. But there's also different types of tiers. The Dark Cast is going to be something that I'm going to get going pretty soon, maybe even this week. There are mailbag priority options. There's the Pick Your Poison tier. So if you want to request some kind of a special feature or gimmick of sorts, like Guest 5 and Marco have done in the past, then take advantage of that. Do the same thing for Fanboys Anonymous, which is the geek culture website that I've got to do movie reviews and to do other things like that. So later on, maybe this week, we're going to do another Pick Your Poison, which is going to be Pokemon the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back. We're going to do a fan tracks for that. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in checking out an audio commentary track for that movie. And if you don't want to take advantage of the Patreon, but you want to help out in some other kind of way on the monetary side of things, then pick up some merch. There's TeePublic and Redbubble for Smark Out Moment, for Fanboys Anonymous, and for A Mango Tees. So if you want to look at those designs and those different merch options for everything from t-shirts to coffee mugs and dresses and leggings and stockings and iPhone cases and all the different types of things that they've got on those two different pages, go ahead and check that out, and thumbs up. Let's move on here to the triple threat match for the NXT UK Women's Championship. We've got Kaylee Ray coming in as champion against Toni Storm and Piper Niven. Storyline here is essentially Piper Niven sort of became number one contender. Toni Storm wants her rematch, and she's been quote-unquote in a dark place since Kaylee Ray beat her for the championship. And Toni Storm wants Piper Niven to fuck off and let her do this by herself, and Piper Niven's like, nah. So, it's not the craziest feud, but it's got some potential behind it. But before even getting into that, I want to address something that I feel could hinder this or change the landscape of it, at least. Piper Niven recently had a Bell's palsy attack, and I don't know if we've gotten any kind of confirmation that she's 100% okay since then, because they recorded all this stuff leading up to this whole all the tapings and setting up TakeOver and all that well before that had happened. And the last thing I had heard about this was just her saying that this Bell's palsy thing had occurred. I'm assuming she's doing okay enough that they didn't want to bother changing the whole setup, but how do you guys think this is going to go down? Do you think that's going to hinder her situation? Is it going to make her somebody that they don't want to necessarily put the title on? Maybe does it help, kind of, in a way, where it's sort of like, well, she's got that going on, let's cheer her up and give her the title, like, is it going to make no difference whatsoever?
I think she gets the belt. And I think not because she went through this, but I do think it adds to it. I think she's a great wrestler and will make a damn good champion. And Kaylee Ray is already getting a bit of a taste of the NXT America side of things. Piper Niven can anchor the women's division of NXT UK, and maybe Kaylee Ray and Toni can move up.
I think it benefits the match because it makes Piper Niven a bigger babyface, because she's fighting not exactly with an injury per se, but with an illness that a lot of people have struggled with in the past. Obviously, WWE fans are familiar with it because of Jim Ross, and so they understand how much it sucks. And she's taking it like a champ, essentially. Really, like, not been very sullen about it. She's been making jokes at herself and on social media about it. So she's a very likable and strong person. So I feel that has helped boost her profile and her character even further, as much as I'm sure it still sucks to have. But as far as I've seen from the things that she has posted, she seems to be recovering well. Obviously, never had it, so I don't know how long it takes typically. But I don't think there's been no indication that she's not going to be part of the match or it's going to hinder her performance in any way. But I don't think that she's winning the title just yet.
So technically speaking, they could, if they wanted to, even at the last minute, do something where she gets taken out of the match if it's a necessity. I mean, even this week, I don't know what the hell they're doing for NXT UK because they ran out of material. There's nothing that they didn't that they did record ahead of time that they can still air. So I'm assuming, again, we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon, so not even NXT has happened yet, let alone NXT UK for this week, but they haven't advertised anything, and maybe it's just going to be one of those generic, we're going to take a look at everything that's happened over the past couple of weeks and do another recap thing or something. But last week's episode of NXT UK, they didn't announce anything, and they didn't do any kind of an angle behind the scenes of, Niven getting attacked by Toni Storm to take her out of the match or anything. So you got to assume that at least the match is going to go down the way that it was advertised, unless they change their mind. But if they wanted to, they could do an attack backstage that takes Niven out, kind of position her as being Did Toni Storm attack her? Did Kaylee Ray attack her? Did Jazzy Gabbard or somebody else like Ginny or whatever, and kind of go in that direction? But I'm leaning more towards the idea that it actually just goes down, and I'm still sticking to my story that I think that Niven's going to win, because going back to Toni Storm just resets everything, and then why do we even bother putting it on Kaylee Ray to begin with? And keeping it on Kaylee Ray does not seem like that's a really great idea. I don't think Kaylee Ray's really wowing anybody other than me when I'm wowed at her promos. So it's an upward direction if we get it out of Kaylee Ray in either direction, but I think if you're going to just go back to square one with Toni Storm, it'd be better to go with something different with Piper Niven.
Well, first of all, I don't think they'll do the attack thing because it's a WWE show, so obviously they will deliver what is advertised.
I mean,
carry the sarcasm there, to let the sarcasm enter the airways. But I personally think that Kaylee Ray should keep hold of the title for a little while longer. I feel she's doing a good job. Obviously, the promos are difficult to understand for a non-Brit, well, even for certain British audiences, because the Glaswegian accent is pretty strong. I don't think she's Glaswegian actually, but she's obviously got a strong Scottish accent, and it's difficult to interpret sometimes. But I feel she has a lot of presence and charisma in the ring, which makes up for the fact that sometimes her promos are a little bit hard to sit through. But I feel that there's more of a story with Piper Niven winning the title one-on-one as opposed to winning it in this sort of fashion. Having Toni Storm in it means that you can have Kaylee Ray beat her, and so Piper can feel kind of screwed out of it, especially if she's the one to hit her finisher or whatever on Toni Storm and Kaylee Ray just sneaks in and takes the pin for herself. That means that you can build towards an actual one-on-one match between these two. And I have seen some of the matches they've had together on ICW and a few other promotions, and they can really, I mean, they're pretty much best friends, but they can really beat the shit out of each other as well. So I really would rather she kept hold of the title so we can have that match going down the road rather than have the title change here.
Well, obviously, we don't know what exactly is going to happen until it happens, and we'll refer to it on the post show and kind of maybe potentially change our opinions. But going into this as far as prediction-wise, and not knowing who's the champion leaving, what's your projections for 2020? Where's this title going back and forth throughout the year? Because I could see it going to Piper Niven and then to somebody else at some point, and not necessarily being like, all right, Niven wins it here, or maybe like Tampa or something like that, and then just keeps it the entire year. Like, I don't think we're in a space where it's going to be either like fully Kaylee Ray or fully Niven or fully Storm or just one person this whole type of year. I kind of think it goes from Kaylee Ray to Piper Niven to Jazzy, but I'm not feeling super confident about that.
I don't think Ginny might get it at some point in the year, but I don't know. I'm not super in touch with the roster right now to make a real claim.
I don't think it's going to Jazzy from Piper because I think Jazzy's turning babyface. Yeah,
that's another thing that I mean, they're sort of teasing, or if not outright saying, that she's turning on Ginny.
So I don't know whether they would put. I mean, Ginny is probably the top heel outside of Kaylee Ray, obviously, but I could see. I think we maybe sometimes grow into the assumption that when someone wins a title, it's going to be won by someone who wasn't the former champion. So I don't see what if there'd be anything wrong with Piper Niven and Kaylee Ray trading the titles a couple of times, if they're the most prominent people on the show. But if we're looking at like further afield, then Ginny has potential, Jazzy has potential. I think Killer Kelly, if you build her up well enough, could probably hold the title as well. And eventually, probably by, maybe not this year, but towards the end of it, you want to be building Xia Brookside up as a top contender for the title. But at this point, I think if you give it to Piper Niven either here or a few months down the road, she should hold it for a good long while. Probably, I'd say at least a 6-month reign.
I was just trying to think of maybe if there's any kind of outsiders, and even though I don't know anything about like the UK wrestling scene or even necessarily like the, American or Mexican or Japanese or whatever, like any of those kind of things to where it's like this indie person should come in and whatever like that, just dawned on me while I was trying to think about that. What about Dakota Kai?
I think
she was doing stuff in NXT UK, and they do have that whole like the people from New Zealand and everything go over to NXT UK. They could kind of play around with that a little bit, and we could get Dakota Kai winning that championship at some point this year.
I feel like she's way too integral to the main NXT right now.
Maybe that's a play to get people to watch NXT UK a little bit more, though.
I mean, it could be interesting if you decided to make the transition the Tegan Nox Dakota Kai feud over into NXT UK instead of NXT.
I'd be forced to watch the show, so I think that might be a good call.
I mean, we don't know when Tegan Nox is going to come back, and theoretically, say Piper Niven beats Kaylee Ray here, and then we get Piper Niven holding the championship for a little bit, and then a couple months down the line, Dakota Kai beats Piper Niven. Depending on when Tegan Nox comes back, that could be where Tegan Nox gets a championship. She could be NXT UK Women's Champion by beating Dakota Kai at some point later on in 2020 or maybe even 2021.
Right.
That would be the worst thing.
I feel by that point, though, especially if you've given the title to Piper Niven for a few months in order to obviously establish some credibility with her, by the time it does get around to Dakota Kai challenging for the title, you probably have worn out all the momentum that she's generated from the heel turn, because you've essentially not paid off that Tegan Nox match probably for that entire span of time. So Dakota Kai is just spinning her wheels on NXT because she's not becoming NXT Women's... Well, she might become NXT Women's Champion, but if she's becoming NXT Women's Champion, they wouldn't move her to NXT UK for later on.
Has Tegan Nox wrestled a match since then? She hasn't on TV, but I don't know about like live events.
I don't think so.
I'm going to try to look that up real quick while we're doing this. But I mean, that is a long time of a stretch to kind of drag that out to. So it's hard to believe that that's the case. But then again, we've gotten things where it's like 15 years later, let's, reiterate the same feud or something. Like, going to be the craziest thing in the world. So, no, she has not wrestled even a live event thing since then. Maybe she's injured again. That would really suck if that's the case.
Yeah, if that is the case, then she can't catch a break.
So I guess, gun to your head, who you going with? I'm going Piper Niven winning the championship here.
Piper Niven.
Kaylee Ray retains.
And then that takes us into the final match, which is for the United Kingdom Championship. We've got Walter heading in as champion against the challenger Joe Coffey. So it's another Gallus versus Imperium side of things. Not feeling it so much just because I don't feel like Joe Coffey has any chance whatsoever at winning this, but maybe it'll be like one of those brutal slugfest type things or something. So I don't think that the match itself is like doomed or anything. I mean, it could be quite fun. My issue is just more so, Walter's going to retain, so I'm not like, oh man, maybe this is when things change or something, like, that's kind of disappointing to me a little bit.
Yeah, it's difficult to almost envision anybody beating Walter at this point in time for the championship. He's just such an imposing and dominant figure, and they haven't built up anyone enough yet to the point that you can realistically have them defeat Walter. The only one they've really seemed to be building up towards it down the road is Ilya Dragunov.
Yeah, if there's anybody on the roster that's happening right now and not like people that they could bring in from NXT or people from, 205 Live or whatever, if it's just the roster that's going on right now, Ilya Dragunov's the only one that stands out as a potential winner.
And Joe Coffey's a great wrestler, and his match with Pete Dunne from the first TakeOver Blackpool show was a very, very good match. But I don't think that he's obviously going to blend well with Walter because they're just two hosses going to beat the shit out of each other, and it's not going to be tons of like high flying and big spots like that, but it's going to be a lot of hearing chops from the other side. You probably hear chops from Blackpool all the way down like here in Essex, really. So that's like just miles and miles away. But I don't feel it's gonna stand out, or it's gonna be something that we go back to and say, oh, remember how great this match was in a few months' time.
Yeah, I think Joe Coffey, I will never doubt him again after the match with Pete Dunne, but I don't see him beating Walter here at all. And I'll cut right to the chase. I think Walter wins in a pretty good match, and he's celebrating with the new tag champions, and that's when Undisputed Era hits the ring, lays them out, because we got to get some build for Worlds Collide, which is in like 3 weeks.
That'd be kind of cool. I'd be up for that. What's the over-under on Dragunov and Wolf getting involved in this match?
Wolf, yes. And maybe Dragunov just to kind of team up with Gallus for one time only and chase them all off.
I'd be surprised if there was any interference in this match. I just don't feel. I mean, my memory kind of escapes me a little bit in terms of like the Walter versus Tyler Bate match, but there wasn't any interference in that from Imperium, was there?
No.
No, I just don't feel like that suits Walter's style, or not as much style, but like just like his overall presence. His presence is the fact that he's world champion because he's the best. He's not world champion because he's got a load of goons doing his dirty work for him, even though he does have a lot of goons doing some of his dirty work for him.
He's also big.
Yeah, he's also very big.
Oh, so Tunde.
So he'll be the next NXT UK champion. But no, I just don't think that. I don't think you need to have some sort of outside involvement in this, because essentially you've already had like Imperium and Gallus involved in a ladder match as well, so they might have the excuse of being all beaten up from that match, so they don't get involved, and this match just goes without any sort of hitch, really.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go Walter, and all the kind of window dressing that goes along with it. It could be, they could have the Gallus and Imperium fight, they could do something with Dragunov, they could do something with the Undisputed Era, they could do nothing, but at the end of the day, Walter's leaving with that title. I can't imagine a scenario where Joe Coffey wins that, especially with Worlds Collide coming up, because then it would be like, all right, well, now Walter's not even the champion, so where's some of that whole, like, Cole versus Walter type stuff, so it's sticking on Walter. Maybe Coffey looks good at the end of the match for putting up a good fight. Maybe there's even some kind of shenanigans or something, I don't know, but can't imagine Joe Coffey winning that title. Can't imagine Joe Coffey opening up a coffee shop, though. I mean, his freaking name's Joe Coffey, so maybe that's something in his future instead. That's it. That's the card. We only have 5 matches, and I guess we might potentially get some kind of recording ahead of time. Maybe they do something that way they can air it the next week before we get into the next set of tapings, which I think is like the 17th and the 18th or something. And maybe that's where they do.
Will there be any main roster inclusion? Because we've gotten 2 takeovers, and they both had main roster guys. You think we get, like, hey, Drew McIntyre shows up and he's going to fight Ilya Dragunov?
I don't think so. Maybe if they do something like that, it'll be on that pre-taped kind of thing, because they seemed to set up the idea that Cassius Ohno and Dave Mastiff could have a match, but they didn't announce it for here. So I guess that's going to be like, well, before we get into the TakeOver thing, we're going to tape a couple little things, and then we're going to do, the whole massive Dave Mastiff versus Cassius Ohno thing there, and maybe they include another match or two. Maybe it's just sort of like, oh my god, surprise, Cesaro's wrestling Travis Banks, or someone. It would be interesting if they do something Worlds Collide related, because that would be a good way to remind everybody, and maybe bring somebody from NXT on there and do a taping thing, the opposite sort of spectrum, because NXT UK has had matches on NXT. Banks has fought some people here and there. I think it was like Jackson Riker or something. So why not have Kushida fight Noam Dar before TakeOver or something like that? But I don't think we're getting a big surprise on TakeOver itself, at the very least.
Fair enough.
Yeah. If we are, cool. I like surprises, as long as they're good surprises. and not like, ah, man, my dog just shit on the floor or something. Not a fan of those surprises. So I'm assuming we get these 5 matches. If we don't, obviously, and we get something more or something different, we'll be addressing that on the post show. This is going down Sunday afternoon. It's not going to be Sunday night. I think it starts at like 12 Eastern, if I remember correctly. And I don't think that they've announced a pre-show, come to think of it. But they usually at least have some kind of pre-show. So maybe it'll be a half-hour recap thing. Maybe it'll be an hour. Maybe they'll include a match at the last minute. The fact that NXT UK hasn't aired yet this week means that they could change anything potentially and advertise that, or they could just pop up on Twitter and say something or whatever. So over the course of the next few days, things might be a little bit different from what our predictions were based on, but they're pretty firm in a lot of these things. So it's probably just these 5 matches. And obviously, we will have the coverage on smarkoutmoment.com. We'll do the post show, as I mentioned, and we'll see where that takes us. Any other thoughts you guys have on NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2?
Yes, as much as I don't have time to keep up with the product as much as I would like to, I really enjoy knowing that Shawn Michaels is basically the top guy behind NXT UK right now. So I look forward to seeing a lot of that influence on the show.
Somebody's going to lose their smile.
I'm sure a lot of people will. There's a lot
someone's not going to do the job for somebody for claiming that. Just like, yeah, I just don't feel like doing it tonight. Maybe he wants to bring back a Davey Boy and just screw him over in his hometown.
Oh, jeez.
That's probably the reason why NXT UK will eventually sign Davey Boy Smith Jr. just so Shawn Michaels can come out of retirement and screw him over in his hometown. Yeah.
That would be awesome.
But
the new European champion, Shawn Michaels again.
And I officially retire with the belt. There we go. So, but no, I mean, I'm looking forward to these shows. The NXT UK like takeovers do tend to have delivered in the past, and so I haven't seen a reason why this one can't as well. It'll probably be the sort of thing where it spurs me to try and watch more NXT UK for about 3 weeks, and then I go back to the status quo until the next takeover turns up.
Exactly.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me if that's the case.
And that's not even a slight on the brand. It's just
There's
too much
slight on everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to cut anything from WWE, you're going to cut out the supplemental, like, the YouTube videos and the bump and whatnot. And then if you're going to start cutting the other shows, you're going to cut out Main Event, and then you're going to cut out 205 Live and NXT UK. It's just, there's a pecking order, and NXT UK is not Raw or SmackDown. So we'll see how everything happens, and obviously we've got positives and negatives. Hopefully it's more than the positives. And that's all happening Sunday. So in the meantime, just keep checking smarkoutmoment.com. Check out the predictions page, because if they do announce anything different, I will update that accordingly. And we will see you when it comes to that. But we got some other plugs to toss out before we say goodbye to you. I did my plugs, but these guys have things to fill you in on. So go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I'm doing WrestleZone.com with the news. Wednesday through Friday, I do the WrestleZone Daily, Monday through Thursday, and I will be on the news desk for Fightful.com for not only NXT UK, but Ring of Honor, Honor Reigns Supreme, and Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill, because wrestling news never stops. And if you want to, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DudePolice. Callum?
Haven't got much to plug at the moment, because the only thing really is you can follow me on Twitter at WeekMeister14, and you can check out the power rankings as well as all the other weekly articles on smarkoutmoment.com. Maybe I'll have more to plug in the future, but right now that's all I've got.
All right, that's all we've got for this edition. Thank you for listening to this, everybody. We will see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.